Hey guys, I'm Dave. Welcome back to the Power Wagon Restoration Vlog. This is episode 9 and we're talking about the 16th and 17th months of restoration. Things are getting kind of interesting. Stick around. You're watching Parts and Restoration. Look at this. The very first tire mounted, inflated, and on the truck. Got a bunch more in the back here that are going to be inflated next. Let me show you how I'm doing that so it's sort of safe. So as I'd previously mentioned, they call these tires the Widowmakers. They have a split locking ring that actually retains the tire and the tube on the outside flange. This is removable. If it's not installed properly, these can explosively fly off. They weigh about 15 pounds a piece and they'll blow your face off. So I want to inflate this kind of remotely. So here's my setup. I have an inflation gun and gauge, which is running all the way back to my compressor. The trigger I have held down, and in order to inflate this, because of the locking nature of this this, what do they call this thing, like a ball something, whatever, it attaches to the valve stem. I'm going to lock this onto the valve stem. So I'll be working the valve from back here. This is probably 30 feet away, and I can keep my eye on that gauge, which I'll be inflating to 40 psi. Let's go ahead and do this one. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. Let's go check. Everything looks good. The seat is on there perfect. I'm almost to my target. I'm going to do like 3 seconds and get that up to 4. Dude. Gnarly. Mother of God. Power Wagon parts. What could it be? Oh, it's heavy. Oh my God. Oh my God. Here we have. Whoa! Oh my God, I almost died. A spare tire carrier for the bed style that I have. The astute among you will realize that this is the cast iron spare tire carrier, which is for the early WDX 46 model. But I have an early bed on my 58, where I purchased an early bed for my 58 because it was available and I don't really care. Kind of like the way the old one looked. There she is. Oh my God, so heavy. So unfortunately, this is the most expensive mistake to date on this project, or probably in any project that I've done. Maybe. The radiator is going to have to be re-cored because of the damage that I did to it when I was trying to solder it. So, but the silver lining is it'll be a more modern core. It will cool more efficiently. So I guess there's that. I don't know. Live and learn. Whatever. Well, the old radiator's in good hands. I spoke to Russ here, who has 65 years of repairing radiators under his belt, so this is the place to be. I think we're going to do really well with this. Okay, welcome back to the shop. Just finished wire wheeling, sandblasting, and then now rust converting the spare tire holder. I also got all the hardware wire wheeled, sandblasted on the truck so we can appreciate it. And now we're going to get into the cab. Well, I get a good way into the repair of this A-pillar here, and of course, my freaking bottle runs out of gas. Argon and CO2 gas in a tiny cylinder goes super quick on this MP200i. It does post-flow and pre-flow of gas to really keep that weld bead well surrounded by an inert gas and no oxygen. So this thing runs dry super fast. I need to get a proper bottle for my argon and CO2. Okay, let's give this thing her first run and drive as a powered little skateboard here. Let's make it happen. Zero brakes. Back to the books. This time it's brakes. And tonight, my job is going to be to get these brakes adjusted so that they actually stop me, unlike they did in this clip. So I've been scouring the brakes chapter, and here we found what we needed to know. The correct 0.006 inch heel clearance and the correct 0.12 inch toe clearance. So the way we find this out is we have this little window on the outside of the brake drum, and with a flashlight I can see the clearance in there, and I can stick a feeler gauge in there and make sure the clearances are correct. Since I don't have the non-existent brake checking tool that's been out of production for 70 years. So, forgive the lack of stories, I'm trying to figure out how this works, and I've come up on a little bit of a snag. So you've got a bolt right here that adjusts an eccentric plate that presses on the brake piece here, so it moves it in and out to adjust the brakes. Unfortunately, have a look at this. So when I turn that nut, it should turn this eccentric plate in here. You can see it's got a little bit of rust on it, and as I turn that nut, literally nothing happens. So what has happened is that plate has disconnected from its mounting. So I gotta take this one shoe off, re-weld that plate onto the nut. But of course I can't do that because my brake tool is at home. Awesome. But all is not lost. We're learning. I'm on to the next one. So I washed this truck the other day, and I left it wet because I wanted to find all the places that hadn't been painted, and it's working pretty well. Who has some thoughts on how to rust protect these? They're going to get a lot of abuse, just that they are going to be cranked on with wrenches and whatnot. I was thinking about either parkerizing them, galvanizing them, heating them really hot, soaking them in oil. I'm looking for some suggestions. There are some operations nearby that can zinc coat them. I could get them crushed. Well, I moved over to the passenger side, wound up damaging one of the eccentrics attached to this nut here. So I got to take the drum off, I got to take the shoes off, probably have to do a weld repair on that eccentric bit. This thing is old, and it's got things that are going to break on it. I'm glad I found this now before I'm on the side of the road and need to make a repair, and I don't have my welder. So silver lining. Very exciting times. Just got my radiator back from Burton's Radiator Service in New Jersey. Really thrilled with the work they did. The guy's been working on radiators for 65 years. Incredible. Anyway, this new core is of a new style. So you can see it's not just straight across. This is an old style core where the fins just go straight across. This has zigzags that go back and forth. And the old style has a little bit of texture on it that you can see. But these actually have louvers that are cut into each piece of sheet metal. That creates a ton more surface area. Anyway, he welded this whole thing back together for me. Looks fabulous, really happy. So I'm not like a fitness watch guy or a smart watch guy, but I just spent the last 25 minutes walking around in circles in my shop trying to find a radiator hose that I knew I have. And I'm just curious how many steps I took in that time period trying to find that freaking hose that was right in front of my nose. Probably 3 miles. Right, as I'd mentioned, I got my radiator back from the shop. Brand new core. I think you all saw that story. Right now, I'm reinstalling the hose that goes into the pump. That's going to connect to this top hose. I just spent the last 20 minutes once again walking around the shop in circles, putting mileage on my boots, trying to find these tiny $1 hose clamps. Total mess. Anyway, this will be back on in the next shot. Major bling bling. Want to see a magic trick? Ah! Forgot about that. Oh gosh. Showing off for Instagram, causing myself more problems. Always good to have spare parts. This is an extra engine head, and I have an extra proper nut for that. Boom. I'm calling it a night, but a little recap. The front brakes on both sides got adjusted, so they're right where they need to be. As soon as you step on that pedal, you've got good brake action. I did that after I bled the brakes again. I had air in the lines from messing with them a few days ago. I filled my radiator, and I installed the radiator, which came back from Burton's Radiator Service in New Jersey. Fantastic work done by that guy. New core, ready to go. Cleaned up the floor a little bit in here. All this sawdust left over from epic stairs making. Turned out really nice there. And that's about it for now. Next time I'm in the shop, I need to adjust the back brakes on both sides. And then once I get my battery situation squared away, I don't know what the heck's going on with that, but I may just get a new battery. I don't know. Once I get this thing cranking, she's going to be ready to start up, run, and stay going with all the coolant in there. So good progress. Here we go. Next up, I got to restore the brake drums on the back of these two back wheels and then adjust the brakes inside. The brake drums are rusty and original as was found. They've been turned, but they need to be painted. Wheels are coming off, they're getting wire wheeled, and then they're going to be painted. Okay, one down, one to go. All right, these are all wire wheeled clean, and now we're going to get in here with some of this cast iron gray from Eastwood, which is like a heat resistant paint that I'm going to be painting these things with. They're going to look brand new when I'm done. Take a look. Good as new. Nothing like a little coat of paint to make it what she ain't. And this is, like I said, high temperature ceramic engine paint in cast iron gray from Eastwood. Thanks, guys. All right, let's have a little bit of fun. I got the radiators in, as we talked about. I got a brand new battery. This is a much larger battery than what I was running before. I just had it going a little bit just for giggles and got a lot of oil on the floor. Just want to run it, see what you guys think. So a little recap, got these last two brake drums done. These have been turned by the machinist. Now they're de-rusted and painted. Those are going to go back on. I did a little bit of brake adjustment today. I noticed that I was getting a little bit of a sluggish brake shoe action happening when I had the drum off. So I wound up doing some more bleeding, got a ton of air out of that one particular line. I think the brakes are good to go now. I got a new battery today. This is much bigger than the one that I had before, significantly more cold cranking amps. It actually kind of fills up the entire tray here, unlike the one that I had before. And so that thing starts and runs great. I've been screwing around with this. It runs like a champion. The only problem is I'm leaking a butt ton of oil. So I'm gonna have to get that. I'm gonna have to drop the pan and check on that rear main seal. This is gonna continue to be a big pain. Putting off for a while, getting this cab finished up. The repairs to these A-pillars have been really pretty extensive, or what is needed is pretty extensive. I'm almost there with this one. I'm working on a video for this, and tomorrow when I come back to the shop, I'm going to finish all this work up, and we're going to start doing a little bit of cold fitting on the original cab. Once I get this all finished up, I'm going to either go in here with my Eastwood SCT tool, get as much of this rust off as I can, and I'm probably going to have this thing sandblasted before I paint it up. But this is intimidating work, and it's not really all that fun, so I've been skipping it. I also stopped because I had run out of gas. I have a proper size bottle for my argon and CO2 for MIG welding, which replaced a tiny little unit, which I don't see right now, but it wasn't cutting it. So anyway, back to work on the welding tomorrow. Exciting stuff. Hey, welcome back. Time for some more excitement. But first, gotta clean up. Ready? The snap jump, my favorite magic trick. Okay, so on the agenda today is to finish up this A-pillar, which has got some rust and rot. I've got a panel that's already been kind of temped in here. I trim that up, remove some of the old rust, and let's get this thing nice and solid. And I'm gonna continue working on the video that's documenting this process. Kind of a crappy day in the shop. Been running into some problems. Getting a lot of blowout through this metal here. It's very thin. The base metal is rusty that I'm attaching to, so it's making this very challenging. I'm working on replacing this piece here and this lower panel. I've gone ahead and gone through and wire wheeled a ton of the rust out of the cab and sprayed with some rust encapsulating or rust converting paint. But it's so hot here. It's really humid, and I'm just not feeling it today. So I'm gonna make tracks. But anyway, I've got a little bit done, and that's all you can do sometimes. Worked on the video, so I got some good new footage for the cab video. I may just nix that because I'm just struggling with this and trying to shoot video and make something cool for YouTube and do a good job at the same time is like basically impossible. So that's all she wrote. Talk to you later. All right, down to the shop, getting some work done on the cab, doing a little bit of repair work on that, some surgery work. Have a look. This panel's been a bit of a pain in my butt. I'm blowing a bunch of holes through this because the metal is pretty rusty on the underlying surface. So I've been doing this technique. I don't know if it's a real technique or I just made it up or whatever. Anytime I blow a hole, I'm just going around with like a really low amperage and globbing up weld around that hole. And basically, it thickens the metal up around the hole and kind of creates enough thickness there that when I do go back and try and close that hole up, it sort of acts as a heat sink. And then, as you can see, I did the whole side kind of looked like this, all blown out, holes just everywhere. And I was able to employ that technique across here, and it filled all those holes up, just grinded those flat, and it looks really nice. I'm gonna keep at it. All right, been hard at it for a while. Got all those holes filled. Now I'm working on this little lower section. I got everything kind of clamped in place. Unfortunately, I cut a little bit too much off this edge here, so I got left with this giant gap. But what I'm going to do is I'm just taking this little piece. I'm going to weld that in, weld it up on the bottom, and then just trim off what's extra, and it'll be good to go. Little hacks. So this gets a little bit complicated in here when I start losing sight of thicknesses and original widths and stuff because I've been doing so much cutting. I mean, this is a new panel, this is new metal, this has all been cut out and cleaned. And so anyway, what I'm doing just to keep myself lined up is I have this old panel here that's literally just straight cut out of the yellow cab, and I'm using it as kind of a frame of reference. It hasn't been modified in any appreciable way. But this way, when I'm not sure if my thicknesses are right, I can just line stuff up, take a quick glance, and I know I'm good to go. Anyway, that's all I got for now. All right, back at it. So, since I last recorded something, I've cut off this front section of the roof that was all rotted out. I basically measured back 9 inches to where the major rot stopped, and then I cut. Well, I measured and then cut. Put a nice line across there that I'm happy with. And then what I've done over here is I've got my cab, my good cab here, or my good cab section. I've taken that piece, clamped it in place, and I've scribed lines across here. So now I've got a nice cut template that should be an exact fit, and I gave myself 1 inch of overlap just for fit up, and I think this should work out pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that and do a little bit of dry fit. Big day. Ready to see something really cool? That is a Franken cab, ladies and gentlemen. Man, oh man. So this is very, very close. And when this gets welded up, these are going to butt right up against each other, and it's going to look fabulous. Check out the fitment. Completely rebuilt A-pillar. All these holes are from the drilled out spot welds. This is all going to get cinched up and plug welded. Oh my goodness. I did not know for sure whether this was actually going to work. But it did. Cool to see that, these cabs were built probably 5 or 6 years apart, but the tooling is still so precise that they pretty much come out, identical. This is all inserted in, rebuild everything. I gotta finish this. Well, I'd say it's been a pretty successful day between getting the final cuts done on this thing, getting this thing fitted up and checking everything out. It looks really good when it's all together, as you saw. I did do some little bit of cleaning here on this firewall. Tomorrow I'll be back. I'm going to get a little bit more work done on the actual yellow cab itself, doing some repairs right around these edges. Some of this stuff in here before I actually slap the whole thing together. There's some stuff that needs to be done on the interior as well, between rust removal and some of this, just some of the stuff is rotten in here, and I've got good components to replace them with. So anyway, I'm gonna go enjoy the day. Had a great ride on my motorcycle today. Got a lot of work done. Really great day in the shop. Talk to you guys tomorrow. Finally at the shop, had lunch, and now I need to clean this place because this shop has become such a show that I can't even really use the space. All right, same shot, some 5 hours apart. I've managed to reorganize pretty much my entire space. All right, as I mentioned yesterday, there's some known issues on the yellow cab, remainder behind me that need to be addressed before I proceed with welding this thing up. it makes a lot more sense to get some of these hard to reach places and repair them before the whole front cowl section is in place. So the first one I'm going to tackle is the rear window. The rear window has a bunch of pitting right around that bottom vent area, and then the bottom half of the window frame itself is pitted pretty badly. So fortunately I have a second cab to cannibalize to get the parts I need. This one, it has similar rust and corrosion patterns on it as the other one, but just not nearly as far along. And because I can just cut this up and not care about it, I can get this all out, sandblast it, repair it, clean it up, paint it, and then get it right onto the, onto the new cab. We've got a similar situation, really rotten out rib panel there, and then an inside lip, totally toast. So I've managed to extricate the parts cab piece from its cab. As you can see, it's in, it's not in the best shape, but it's in significantly better shape than the yellow cab version. And then on the exterior, we have a little bit of an unknown situation because there's been a ton of Bondo done to this gray cab. You can see there's a bubble that I just popped. It's got some rust underneath of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stick this thing in the sandblaster, get all of the relevant parts clean, and see what I'm working with, and go from there. All right, I got that rear rib section, vent thing, whatever, on the bench. I've got a piece that is spot welded in place, and I got to get this off of here because underneath this piece, I got a ton of rust and rot that needs to get exposed, sandblasted, and encapsulated. So step number one, I'm using an automatic center punch to locate all of these spot welds. And this is really easy. Usually you can just visually see them, like I got a depression right here, depression right here. There's one right there. Hit it. Leaves that nice little, there's one. This is what they look like when they aren't too rotten out. Just a little pucker. Get right in the center of it. If for some reason you were on the fence about removing that panel that you thought was rusty underneath, as soon as you start drilling, you'll know. Rust City. Let's see. It's a very straight section, so it'll be really easy just to replace. And I'm going to bend a piece of actually leftover cab material on my brake. Just drop it right in. Too easy. Okay, so here's that section. Really rusty in through there. I cut all this out, and I've bent up a piece of version 16 gauge on the old brake, and I've got this fit into a little slot right where it needs to be. And I'm going to tack that in and weld this up. See what this looks like when I'm done. Well, it's not exactly dimes laying on their side, but there's something very satisfying about shiny little tacks. Letting this cool down. I'll send some more in a minute. Yeah, baby. 10 million spot welds later. This thing is solid as a rock. Let's get this thing trimmed up and see what she looks like. Well, that's it for now. Been a big day. Got a ton done. Look at this truck. She always looks so cool when I throw the fenders on there. Really getting there. Shop is looking nice and clean, ready for some serious work tomorrow. I'll be back here bright and early, knocking some more stuff out. Just a quick recap. I did take that panel off. We saw this is the window frame from the parts cab. Got really good solid metal in there after some sandblasting. Couple little spots, nothing too crazy. I'm going to patch those tomorrow, but I'll be able to reuse this. This is significantly nicer than this one over here. Rusty, pitted, gross. We saw that last piece that I've been working on for the last hour or so. It's coming along. Got this rust encapsulated. It's basically a Rust-Oleum product that you spray on. It's a rust converter. Converts rustiness to black primer. So this is drying. But anyway, that whole section is welded in inside and outside. I'm going to cut. I started cutting it down with tin snips just because I don't want to bother my neighbors. It's late. But I'm going to finish this job tomorrow with an angle grinder and a cutoff disc. And this will be ready to go back on the truck and replace the rotty, nasty one that's in there. Okay, here we are back the next day. Got everything trimmed up. And I've got a brand new, essentially, panel to replace this crappy one. So next, I'll start working this window surround edge. Probably trim out here, and then the this lip in the back is also trash, needs to be replaced, and start working this stuff in. All right, I'm working the window surround up. Already replaced one section of rotten metal right there. You can see I've got two more to replace. I got one with a hole and another tiny little hole. It's got an associated depression that I'm gonna get rid of. I've placed pieces over those that I've shaped up to that sort of contour and sprayed them, so I got an exact outline of where the patch needs to go. I'm going to cut those out with a cutoff disc and replace them. As you can see, I've already done one, and it's imperfect, but it's pretty close, and it'll be perfect with some body filler. Here's the before and after. Like it never even happened. Here's a quick tip for you. When you're repairing rotten sections of metal like this, sense of touch is pretty important. So I'm feeling with my finger along here when I am lining up these two sections to make sure the two edges are flush. So what I'm going to do before I do anything else is take a file and just knock off that burr edge and make sure that that edge is nice and flush so I don't get a false reading when I put my fingers across here. So now that I've got a nice flush edge, I will flush these up together, and it's easier with two hands obviously, but I'll be feeling across the surface to make sure that they're perfectly smooth and level before I weld up. That's high right there, so that's going to be an issue. So I'm just going to take a pliers, bend it down ever so slightly, line it back up. Perfect. Let's hit it. Nope. A little bit of blowout, that's all right. Whew. Not gonna lie to you, for a long time, this truck was the coolest thing in my shop. Now, this is the coolest thing in my shop. Okay, you can see where I used spray paint to mark the outside edges of the replacement panel. Just gone in and cut all these pieces out and just went and stripped right along this bottom edge. You saw last night I used a spot weld drill to get all these spot welds out. For this, I'm just getting it out. I actually want to keep this in place because I've got to recreate this angle on my new window frame or window surround, so I left that in place. Anyway, let's see if this comes out. Okay, that's kind of dangling. That's fun. We got a little, this is holding on by a thread. There we go. All right, so you can see just how bad this one was. Ugh, nasty, completely trash. Isn't that better? All that rot, all gone in the trash. New metal, always nice. Okay, back window bottom is sort of in the ballpark right now. Just kind of had to trim some things up to get that to fit properly. As you can see, I've got a nice gaping hole back there. And I need to now, here's the one out of the yellow cab. There's an angle that I'm staring at right now that I need to replicate on this piece because it was completely rotted on the original one. I gotta fabricate that angle, weld it in place, prime all this and seal it all up, and then we'll weld this on. All right, a little update on that lower section of the rear window. This is the one that came out of the yellow cab. I can't remember if I showed this or not, but it just makes me really glad that I got this thing out because this is just absolutely trash. It's really on its way to becoming scrap. It certainly is scrap anyway. So I've got that angle section that I showed you. Here is the one that I'm working on right now. I have the angle section in place, measured up off of the other one. I use that like as a template. And I'm just welding this in with lots of tacks as you do with sheet metal. It isn't perfect, and the actual angle that I had unequal, like the top flange was not completely straight, which doesn't matter. I measured off the bottom of that angle to get the proper height, and when this is all welded up, I'll just grind off that top flush and it'll be good to go. So halfway there. Well, boys and girls, that's about all she wrote for the day. As you can see, I've made pretty good progress. Went from having a rusted, rotted out piece on the yellow cab to a completely rebuilt piece here that's got a bunch of patches in it. It's been just chopped and cropped. You saw the story. Been hard at it all day on this piece. This rib section, the stiffening rib section came out of the yellow cab, completely trash. Just nothing even worth saving on this. Fortunately, got a nice section out of the gray cab that I was also able to rebuild. You can see there's a replaced flange section on there. You've been watching the stories, you know what's up. Tomorrow, I'll be fitting this in the cab and getting some work done on the floor in here. The plan is to get going on these front kick panels and maybe a little bit of this floor section in here. After today, I've got 2 more days of vacation, so I'd like to get into this nasty nook right in here and get all that rotten metal out, replaced. I think that's doable. This little bottom corner of that side panel there, I can probably cut out and replace. May do a little bit of bead rolling to match that cool little bottom thingy going on there. This side needs it as well. Just looking at big picture stuff, this bottom rocker panel is going to need to get done. The idea that I'm going to have this cab put back together by the end of this vacation is definitely not going to happen, but I'm proud to have made some good progress, and that I'm making some good progress is great news. Anyway, more to come tomorrow. Stick around. I'll see you again then. Get a load of these replacement rocker panels that I fabricated up yesterday. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see the ones that I had on the truck were a little crusty. Got that replacement flange in there for the top. And I actually used the original metal as a template. I clamped this down to a piece of sheet metal and traced around each surface all the way around. Flattened out all of the flanges like this one, and then there's another one here on the end, and of course those made it onto the new one. And I actually, when I welded these up, I put them on the side of the truck to just make sure that they fit perfectly. So they are drop-ins. Once these get welded up, I got to finish welding these up. There's a little excess metal that needs to be trimmed, but it turned out pretty nice. What do you think? Well, this chunk here, as seen over there, it's really, really rough. Got it off the truck, drilled out all the spot welds, a couple of globby gas welds that were holding this thing in place. So got it off. I'm going to start replacing the rot. And to do that, I've just been making templates using the original pieces. So you can see, just kind of catching that edge, lining everything up, and I'm going to cut these out just outside that line and start replacing panels here. You know that feeling in life when you try something new and right away you're kind of like, you know what, I'm kind of good at this. That angle matchage. Oh my gosh. Nailed it. All right, a little more progress. I got these first 1 and 2 panels in place. Next step, I'm going to cut out this bottom bit here that's got all the holes in it, replace that with a fresh panel, and I'll touch base with you when I get there. All right, big reveal. Ta-da! Who here doesn't love a good puzzle? Last piece of the pie on this one. Just got to weld everything up, and this will be a nice, solid, rust-free corner. Now that is a sight for sore eyes. No rust, no rot in this entire panel. Compared to this one right here, which has some serious pitting and rot going on in it. Right in the exact same spots as this one. So I got all the nasty out and replaced it with the good stuff. Next, I'm going to have to work on this floor section before I weld this all up. So as you can see here, this definitely needs like complete replacement. All the way through here is really rough. It's solid, like it's got good metal on the bottom. But I'm here, I've got a bunch of 14 gauge sheet steel. I'm just gonna replace all of this in through here. I found out today that my brake, my metal brake right here can actually handle 14 gauge. I don't wanna say no problem, but not too bad. so I can get this rolled over section here just fine. This is a little bit of a tricky transition here, but I think I should be fine. You can see there's an edge. There's an edge right there that needs to be kind of bent down. I'll probably do this one flat as a section and then do the edge as a section. This inner flange is good, but rebuild this, weld it back together. This is actually all good through here, it's just dirty. And then this will be all set, and then I'll move on to the other side. All right, here we are back at the driver's side again. The floor, like I showed you before, terrible. So here's what we did. Got a painter's tape template, marked out exactly where I wanted to replace flooring material. I spray painted around that so I can show exactly where the edge is, where I want to make my cut to remove this metal. And I transfer my tape template onto a piece of sheet metal, as you can see. Once that's cut out, get yourself a panel. You can see that shiny high spot right there. There's a little bit of a roll right there, like a flange edge, which I made on the sheet metal brake. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut that nasty floor out, spot weld that in place. Yeah. Always nice to hear the neighbors' music as they drive by. Anyway, here's the old panel replaced with the new panel, and they've got a nice little interface going on between this panel, which has not been welded back in yet, and the new floor. So this actually was really straightforward. Like I showed you, making that template was really easy. This thing is just trash. The bottom looks really nice. I mean, if that was what was facing me in the cab, I'd probably just leave it. But it's not, alas. Anyway, I'm gonna have to cut out these mountings and put them back in. Those actually hold the transmission hump to the floor, so I'm gonna have to replace those. I may just weld in nuts later on, but I don't know. Theoretically, I'll probably steal those nuts out of there. Looking good. So this side, once I weld that all up, will be totally done. I've got the rocker panels done. I'm gonna sandblast the panel that goes right in here. And the next time I'm down here, I'll tackle this. Metal looks cool. Like, artistically looks cool. But it is really rough. Man, oh man, I stopped down the shop tonight and it's like a zillion degrees in here. I'm sweating buckets. I was able to get the second firewall support out that came out of this side, and I'm working on getting some of the markings made to show where the bad metal is in the floor of this cab that I'm going to cut out, like I've done on this side over here. And I just finished. I made a tape template, and I sprayed that onto a piece of 14 gauge steel, so that's ready to go. This is kind of goofy over here, though. I've got my firewall completely just levitating right now. It's just hanging by its supports. It leaves it right in place, and in order to guarantee that I put everything back in the exact same place, the cuts on here are cut just inside of the gas welds that were put on here to attach the cab to attach the firewall to its support here. So I'll just be able to butt the support, this angle piece, right up against its original weld. That kind of acts as an index for the part when I go to put it back in place. And then as far as the bottom is concerned, I'm not really worried about exact placement, because the angle of that is going to help to determine, or how far back and forth it goes is going to determine my door, really play a big part in the door gapping. So actually, when I go to put this cab all back together, I'm going to have to remove this support, and I'm going to re-gap the doors using some shims all the way around, and then do the final weld up so that everything is exactly where it needs to be. But that's all for tonight. I got to get home. It's too hot to mess around anymore with this nonsense. What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the shop. Right now I'm constructing a enclosure for doing some blasting. Can you see what I'm going to be blasting? So I decided that it wasn't worth the extra money to take this to a professional to have it blasted, because sandblasting is really easy and you don't really have to be a professional to sandblast. You just need the right tools. So all this lumber is what was just laying around the shop. These drop cloths cost me about $20 for all of them. I'm going to be dropping one onto the floor here shortly, so that I can reuse all of my blast media, which I've purchased. I'm going to be using some coal slag that I picked up at Tractor Supply. Also bought one of those beehive helmet things that you wear to protect your face. I'm going to be wearing respirator, gloves, full sleeves. But anyway, I'm going to be blasting this entire cab, all of the components, to get it ready for that final assembly. Most of the welding is done, but I just want to have this thing super duper clean before I weld it back together. Well, it's official. I'm either going to sandblast this cab or I'm going to go Dexter on somebody inside of my little murder shack. One or two things. I'll let you guys determine that. If you like that video, take some time to check out my other ones. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I usually figure it out. Thanks for watching.